And welcome back to the Big Red Wired Wrestling Show, everybody. It's back. We're recording this on a Wednesday. Tyler, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Pretty fun week so far. After that throw-in win on Sunday, good senior day send-off for the guys at the Vanny, so I'm doing well.
Before we dive into wrestling, Nebraska basketball last night against Purdue faced a 22-point deficit, lost the heartbreaker in overtime. But you just can't allow that many offensive rebounds. I believe, what was it?
21, I believe. Can't
yeah,
happen.
Exactly.
Got to hit your free throws at the end of the game.
Once again, Nebraska has a realistic chance to win out on the basketball court as well. Or we could talk about Bill Moose's book that's been a hot topic in Nebraska this week.
Yeah, that was something, wasn't it? It's always entertaining to see the things that come out 5 or 6 years after you get a little regime change like that. But
well, guys, if you haven't already, be sure once again to follow ourselves on Twitter at bschneider33, at DugoutCox. Like, comment, and subscribe as well. But Nebraska, 47-0 shutout over Northwestern. Yes, it was expected for Nebraska to throttle Northwestern, but they did it convincingly in a positive manner. I know there was 2 forfeits. We don't know why. Mark Manning said he didn't know why. It was pretty disappointing. I mean, this is a Division I wrestling program, and you're forfeiting 2 weight classes.
Very disappointing, especially for somebody like Jared Kundamiti, who, was looking forward to making his senior day start. He got to go out there, but not compete in the way that he envisioned. But overall, very pleasing day for Nebraska, for Manning, and what's going to be another weekend where they face back-to-back ranked opponents.
And it was fitting to see Brock Hardy, Chance Lamer, Silas Allred each pick up tech falls. And just across the lineup, there was a real sense of attack, which it was expected. Let's be real here. Northwestern didn't feature anybody that would compete with Nebraska on a mat. And you've seen that. Cale Lordson picked up a decision over number 24, Diedrich Navarro, and maybe solidified himself to be the guy at 125 the remainder of the way.
Yeah, Nebraska, they did what they had to do and what they needed to do, coming off of 3 straight losses, the gauntlet of a schedule. It was the perfect time for a get-right series. And they got it. And, like you said with Cale, it's going to be very interesting to see where things go at 125. With Kaler's performance at Penn State a couple weeks ago, leaving a little bit more to be desired than one would wish. Cale took advantage of his opportunity, and I think we'll see an interesting weekend coming ahead.
Now, I don't know if Sean Spittle, the 133 at Northwestern, whether he was injured or not, but I was disappointed to see him not even be able to wrestle Jacob Van D, but he did snap that 3-bout losing streak in a nice 20-4 tech fall.
Yeah, looking back on that, I would agree with you just because of the way that the rest of the match kind of played out. There was really no competitive bouts at all on the day. But great performance by Van D. He needed to break the streak, and he did it, and he did it in a convincing way, just like every senior did that competed on the day. So
when we were sitting there after those 2 forfeits, then here comes Christopher Minnow, and you're thinking, well, this is cakewalk. Well, Eddie and Wright really tested him. I believe, let's go back to it. He had that early takedown, and Minnow was trailing 3-2, but he wound up pulling it off, got the escape, got the late takedown. I believe 28 seconds were remaining to avoid the upset. And once again, Manning just said that's the reason he's going to be on the podium come March.
Yeah, Manning talked about it after. It was maybe a little bit of an off day for Minto, but he got it done. There were a lot of extracurriculars that went on in that bout. Definitely some questionable officiating. You saw Manning get up on the floor a couple of times, but he got it done, got the 6-3 decision. So
yeah, it definitely looked like Enright was stalling a few times. But anyway, I mean, we could keep talking about Nebraska's route of Northwestern, but at the same time, we expected that. Now let's dive into this weekend, though. The Huskers have 2 more Big Ten duels, Friday and Sunday, before they close out conference play, before the one final duel, and then the Big Ten tournament. And that starts with number 10, Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois, really interesting matchup. It's going to be a competitive bout. They're coming off of a win against Purdue, which they really dominated in every aspect. Took it 28-6 last week. So I think it's going to bring a lot of good matches for Nebraska.
And it starts off with at 125, Nebraska's. You'd assume it's going to be Lordson.
You'd have to think that this weekend you're going to see Lordson. I wouldn't be surprised if they split it. You're going against number 16 more for Illinois and then number 17 for Indiana. So it's 2 pretty evenly matched bouts for the 2, and I think Manning could use it as an opportunity to get his guy going into Big Tens.
I think you're going to plug in Cale, though, Friday. just because Illinois across the lineup has some other guys that could or more prone or likely to pull off an upset against Nebraska down the lineup.
Yeah, I think Kale earned it too. I don't think you're off base there at all. And as you go down the lineup, there are some bouts that could be a little tougher, a little sneakier as the night goes on.
And I mean, Kaler, we've talked about it this year. He hangs in there against ranked opponents, but Kale has I believe two ranked wins, or at least in dual play. He beat the Mizzou kid as well when he was number 22 in the nation. So I think you like where he's at. Looks like he's fully recovered from that knee injury he suffered back against Oklahoma State. And maybe that'll just be something. And it's really a nice addition to have for Nebraska, because 125 has been a consistent loss no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, for him, the two wins this year both have come against ranked opponents. And, to put it into perspective, it's been frustrating for Nebraska at 125, especially when you compare it with what you've gotten throughout the rest of the lineup. But to be honest, there's a lot of things there that you see from two young guys that you have to like going forward and continue to develop in the offseason.
Well, I just really liked how he came out attacking against.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was out there. I think it was because when he got in there, he delivered that takedown, and then he had a 3-point near fall within the first period. We haven't seen that so much from there, and I think that's pivotal. Manning said Nebraska wants to be attacking, and finally, I think you have that. But then you get to Jacob Van D, who's going to be taking on number 1, defending national champion Lucas Bird.
Van D, yeah, he's taking on Bird, and, we'll see if Van D's matchup against Bazan the other day, carries over into this weekend. Bird actually didn't wrestle great against Purdue, right? Just pulled out a 5-4 win against Blake Borman. I think it's a really good opportunity for Van D to kind of get some confidence back going forward.
And I believe the two have not met before, but at the national duels, Bird beat Drake Ayala 7-2, and then of course he beat Ayala at the NCAA championships last year in the finals. So you don't think Van D is going to probably pull it off, but maybe he can make it interesting.
Yeah, it'd be nice, to stay out of bonus points in the first two is going to be really important, because there's a lot of things later in the match that could flip, until you get to 174 with Minto where you feel really comfortable, and then 197 you feel a little bit better. So to get some early wins would be good for Nebraska.
And Illinois doesn't have the home fan base like Nebraska, Iowa, or definitely not Penn State. But still, you don't want to let them have that momentum on a Friday night on the road, because that's where you could run into some trouble. I mean, even at Minnesota, if Taylor didn't pull off that clutch pinfall within the final seconds, I mean, who knows where that would have went for Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it time and time again this year, just how important momentum is. So to stay out of bonus points up early would be big for Nebraska.
And we were talking about at 141, Brock Hardy's wrestled Danny Pacino and beat him each time, 3-0 all time, but it sounds like he probably will not get the opportunity to wrestle him this Friday night.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Cole Brower. He struggled this year, 4-11 on the season. Just, kind of loss after loss for him. We're not really sure why Pacino's out. He's been out since, the Michigan State bout early in January. But I think it's going to be a good opportunity for Hardy against a guy who just lost to number 33 Grayson Clark kind of definitively last weekend.
Yeah, you're thinking bonus points for sure. Probably another tech fall. I mean, I'd throw that out there right now. You're expecting something at least by a 10-plus point margin.
I would think so, leading you into Lamer at 149. Yeah, that'd be big.
And Lamer, he dominated. He keeps kind of sliding down. He's now number 20 in the Intermat rankings. But now he's going to be taking on, they're not featured too much. I mean, Michael, I think it's pronounced
Geoffrey?
Yeah, you're probably right. But that's number 30. It's a senior. He's 13-6 on the season as well. You like Lamer there, but he could be tested pretty well, and it might come down to the final period.
Well, for me, this is actually one of my bats of the night. I think it's going to be really important for Lamer to get this one because, let's say you take a bonus. Illinois takes bonus in the first two. You don't want to get down 10-3, 10-4, going into a tough matchup at 157 and then 165. I think it's going to be very important for Lamer to kind of do what he did against Northwestern, right? 5 takedowns in the first period. He was in control the entire time.
Yeah, if you think about that, if Nebraska, because, you expect Hardy to get you some bonus points at 141. But Nebraska, let's say Nebraska drops the first two, maybe you're trailing 6, 7, nothing at that point. Then then let's say, okay, so maybe it's 7-5, but then Lamer loses. I mean, then you're trailing again. And then we're going to get to 157 and 165. those aren't guarantees. And that gets to 157, where Cannon Webster, a guy who actually beat Antrell Taylor at the 2024 World Team Trials in freestyle. I like Taylor here still, but Webster is 15-2 on the year. He's ranked number 9 in the internet rankings.
I like Taylor too, and I mean, he's going to be fresh, right? Didn't have to go last weekend against Northwestern, so that's always a good sign for Nebraska. Webster, a young guy, a lot of wins this year, coming off of a tech fall against Isaac Rubel, against Purdue. It's going to be a tough challenge for Taylor. Maybe a little similar to the way that Penn State bout kind of went about, where there's not a lot of scoring early, and it's just kind of pick and choose your spots.
And that's really Taylor. He's like a snake. He kind of waits and then he strikes right at the end. But I think Taylor will handle him, and I'm confident. I think he's wrestling them better than any 157 in the country right now.
Right now, Taylor for sure is putting himself in position to make another run at a national championship, and you'd have to like it if he would, finish out these next 2 bouts with wins.
Yeah, you got to give Charlie Season a shout out on Twitter for pulling up that. He made a nice little table breaking down each guy at 157 in the top 10 over the past couple months. Taylor, of course, hasn't lost since the national duels. But then Nebraska gets LJ Arujo back likely this week. He last weekend went down to try to qualify for the World Team Brazil. And he's going to be taking on number 8, Braden Scholes.
Yeah, Arujo really needs this one, especially with the way that things were kind of going for him before he went down to Brazil. And there's a common opponent here, Joey Blaze. Scholes just faced him, actually lost in a 3-0 decision. Arujo had that, 8-2 loss early at the beginning of January to open up Big Ten play. So this is a spot for him where he can really kind of get back on the right track before Big Tens and NCAAs.
Right now, if you had to predict the winner, who are you taking?
At 165, I do think Scholes pulls it out. Just with the way that he wrestled against Blaze, and then a little bit of home field advantage. You kind of have to lean that way, I would think.
I'm going to counter you. I'm taking Arujo.
I think it's definitely possible. It's just going to be
I think that's the bout of the night. You got number 7 versus number 8. Of course, Lamer's going to be good at Taylor. 133, you're really circling that one as well. And that's what's nice. Nebraska gets somebody that's going to test them across the lineup.
Yeah, I think it's really going to come down to Arujo's offensive attack on the night. We kind of, in the last month or so, offensively, he's been lacking in some areas. Poor positionings just put him in tough spots on the mat. So I think if he can control it early, he's in a good spot.
At 174, Illinois has quite the impressive freshman, Colin Kelly. He's 14-5 on the year, ranked number 25. This is another guy that could test Minnow.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for Minnow to kind of rebound off of what was a little bit of a disappointing performance. He pulled out the win. We talked about it against Northwestern, but compared to everybody else on the night, it wasn't exactly what he would have been looking for. I have Minnow here. I don't think he's going to have much of a problem with Kelly, but it's a dangerous bout if it can get to that point.
I wouldn't say I was disappointed in Minnow. We were talking about that. Stalls, and there was some it was questionable.
There were some other circumstances certainly that affected it, but in terms of the first period and a half, there was a little more to be desired from him.
He had Minnow on the ground, and Minnow could not escape.
Absolutely.
He rode him the entire first period. So I totally see what you're saying there. And then Silas is going to be taking on Chris Moore, who's number 18. He's a sophomore, 13-7. I like Silas here.
I think you have to from Minto down, you have to really like what's going on at Nebraska right now in the heavyweights, right? Silas has just been the stability lately where you can rely on a win, a couple clutch bouts in the last few matches for him. And I like Silas too. I don't think he's going to have a problem there.
Silas is ranked number 6 in 184, but from 4 to 1, there's like a giant gap from the top 4, I think, to the bottom, the rest of the top 10 at 184. But yeah, I like Silas here as well. And then Camden McDaniel, Illinois is probably going to ride with Cade Lott. He's a senior. He's 5-6 on the year. He wrestled in the past duel for the Illini. But this is where you pick up some major, or you pick up a bonus point or two, and if it's tight, this is where you can pull away.
Yeah, this is where Nebraska gets a little bit of flexibility at the end of the match. I mean, McDaniel shouldn't have an issue here. Like we said with Allred, he's wrestled very, very well. And, at the bottom of that lineup, it's basically penciled in for a win every time.
Now, AJ Ferrari is going to probably be tested pretty well because Luke Loftman, he's ranked 13th. He's 11-3, similar to AJ Ferrari's 10-2 record. He's a senior as well. I think this is going to be just similar to Penn State, similar to at Minnesota. It's going to be tight. It's going to be one of them 2-1 bouts.
Well, I think you've seen two different wrestlers in AJ Ferrari this year. You saw what you saw on Sunday where he was aggressive. He was getting takedowns. It happened against Purdue. It was Hayden Filipovich, in January. And then you've seen what you saw against Minnesota and Penn State where he's kind of just had to control the bout and be very cautious when he's taking his opportunities. This might be another one of those days. But when he's had to do that, he hasn't had really any issues unless it's against Nick Feldman. So I think AJ is in a fine position this weekend too.
Yeah, he's impressive being able to ride out these opponents nearly the entire third period and get that bonus point to avoid going the sudden victory. I'm excited because the AJ Ferrari and Nick Feldman are going to meet at Big Tens.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of versatility with what he's had to offer this year, and I think that's going to be a very big match for them at Big Tens. And it's going to show, where Ferrari's improved since the last time they met and really give a good litmus test on his national championship aspirations.
It's going to be fascinating to just watch him go through the rest of the season and then see what the future unfolds. Because Nebraska's applying for a waiver for him, but was heavyweight the right weight class for him?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. You're losing 184, right? We talked about it a little bit with, what you can do with maybe McDaniel and with Ferrari, and then you have Ziola in the mix. So I think it's going to be something to watch with Manning down the stretch.
Right now, if you had to throw out a number of a score prediction where you sit
this weekend, I think it's 25-10 Nebraska. I don't see a lot of bonus points early, but I think that there's opportunities for them, especially with Hardy, as we've talked about. We'll see what Taylor can do. I think Nebraska takes it handily.
I like that prediction. I'm thinking similar to a Minnesota type score. I know Nebraska beat them 21-10, 21-12. Actually, 20-10 was the official score after AJ Ferrari got penalized after his bout. But I'm similar to you. I'm thinking right now probably 22, maybe 23-10-12. It just depends on. I see Nebraska winning 6-7 of those bouts.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, 133 is an area where you'd be happy to get it. But other than that, I don't see him about that Nebraska can't win on the night.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would not be shocked to see him win 8-9. Who knows? Maybe you're going to have to pull off quite the upset to beat Bird, though.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be quite the tone setter, though.
And then so Nebraska then takes off Saturday, and then one final duel. It's an early one, 11 a.m. on Sunday against number 25 Indiana, who just upset number 15 Wisconsin 30-9 last Saturday.
Yeah, Indiana wrestled very well, maybe a little bit better than they actually are, I think, with some of these upsets that we saw at 133, at 149. But it's a dangerous bout for Nebraska, especially coming off a tough Illinois performance, 2 days before.
So you think that there's a good chance we see Kaler here on Sunday against Jacob Moran?
I think there's a good chance that we see Kaler there, yeah, especially if Lauritsen goes on Friday night. Now, I think it is kind of dependent on how Lauritsen wrestles, right? Like, let's say he pulls out a win against Spencer Moore. I think it's very possible they just ride him, against Indiana. But I do think that this might be a last-ditch effort by Manning to really determine who his guy is right there. And what we saw from Kaler on Sunday from Lauritsen on Sunday is kind of opened it back up.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be one of those bouts. And if Lauritsen loses, maybe they plug him back in and say, okay, here's your opportunity. You go pull this off on Sunday. We're rolling with you the rest of the way.
Yeah. I think it's a very fluid situation. And, maybe if you see Kaler on Sunday, it doesn't mean anything. And it's just to kind of give him a little bit of a break off from what he did on Friday. But we'll just have to see.
And he's actually Moran's the highest ranked guy on the Indiana roster across the lineup. But like you mentioned, there were quite some upsets this past weekend for the Hoosiers. Jackson Blum, that's who they wrestled last time, the freshman. He's 8-6 on the year at 133. You like Van D there, but who knows?
Yeah, you do like Van D there, but he just took down number 8 Zan Fugit, so it's going to be really difficult. He's a freshman, right? Like, you don't know what you're going to get with these guys sometime, and when they're really rounding out, their season and maybe he's kind of catching a hot stretch here at the end and turning into what he can really be. We don't know yet. So.
And I believe at 141, Brock Hardy has wrestled Henry Porter. If they deploy him, he's ranked 25th on the Intermat rankings, and he is 12-4 on the year, a senior.
Yeah, he handled Porter pretty well last year and wasn't really competitive. There's a couple guys in this lineup that have gone against Nebraska in recent years, and they didn't seem to have really an issue there. Porter coming off of a win against Wisconsin, but it's Hardy, right? Like I don't think that that's going to be something that you're too worried about if you're the Huskers.
Now, if we're going to talk about more upset alerts, that'd be Joey Butler against Chance Lamer, especially depending on what he does Friday night, because he defeated Joe Zargo of Wisconsin this past week, who's now ranked number 12.
This is a very big weekend for Chance Lamer to kind of reestablish himself in the top 15 wrestlers at 149. Like we've talked about, right? He's fell out of it a little bit, whether Manning said he's dealt with some sickness here and there and the situation hasn't been perfect for him. But yeah, we alluded to it. It's dangerous. There's a lot here that could go either way. And I think Lamer's going to have to take advantage of that.
Now you get to 157, Bryce Lowry, 9-7 on the year. You like Taylor there. I mean, we can touch on it, but that should be he should cruise by with ease there. But then 165 to 197, you have ranked guys. You have number 18, Tyler Lillard, a junior, 11-4. At 174, you have number 28, Derek Gilcher, a senior, 11-6. 184, number 19, Sam Goyne. He's a freshman, 8-4. And then at 197, number 22, Gabe Saulers. He's a senior, 10-7, but he lost to Camden McDaniel 4 times last year. I like Nebraska in all these, but I wouldn't be shocked to see one or two be really tested.
I wouldn't be shocked to see one or two tested or even flipped, but on paper, you'd like Nebraska in all of them. You favor Nebraska in all of them. And I think if they get hot down the stretch, then I don't think that they'll have an issue there either.
Well, and here's the thing. I know Nebraska lost at Penn State. I know they lost to Iowa. They did lose to Iowa and Ohio State. But ever since that Iowa duel, you're seeing the Nebraska in an aspect that we expected preseason across the lineup. They're competing, and I think that they've gotten hot at the right time. They got the confidence now of just thumping Northwestern. So I like Nebraska there. And then at heavyweight, you're taking on Caleb Marzolino, I believe. Marzolino. But he's a redshirt freshman who is 5-16 on the year. You wonder if Cade Ziola gets the nod there.
You'd have to think that if Cade Ziola is going to get another one this year, then it would come on Sunday. We've been trying to predict it for weeks. It hasn't really happened yet. I think it's a good opportunity for Ziola. I think that if you're going to throw him out there, down the stretch, unless you see a Utah Valley appearance for him, which I wouldn't think so, with there being a 3-week layoff before Big Tens after this weekend, I think that you'll see Ziola, potentially on Sunday.
I think Nebraska handles Indiana. I believe they lost, 51-0 to Penn State. I think Nebraska wins 9 of the bouts.
Yeah, I think it's, I think Nebraska has the opportunity to be just fine and to win 9 of the bouts, like you said. But there are a few things that kind of make you wonder, and how it could shake out if things don't go the right way for the Huskers.
Well, even the aspect of it being an 11 a.m. duel on a Sunday.
Yeah, no, it's always dangerous, man. Going 11 a.m.
Team hotel on a Saturday night.
Hotel on a Saturday night. Have to get up and go weigh in, pretty early in the morning. Yeah, it's not an ideal scenario.
But I think that Nebraska's cruising in the right direction. Now it's just a matter of putting it into full fruition.
Yeah, right now it's just let's polish everything up before Big Tens. Let's see what we can do this weekend. Go get a couple of wins and then, really look to compete for a national championship down the stretch.
Compete for a national championship? That's a bold take from Kyler today.
Well, let's be honest, right? Number 6 team in the country, we're going to compete for a national championship. Now, I do think there's an extremely big gap between, even number 5 and number 6 from what we've seen, with Iowa. But the expectation's still there for the Huskers.
I think that Nebraska is the 3rd best team in the country.
Who do you have in front of them?
Okay, so here's the thing with Iowa. Of course, Iowa's been beat by Minnesota. Rutgers beat Minnesota this past weekend. The Big Ten's loaded with wrestling talent, the best conference, clearly. Iowa State has a good program, but they're in the Big 12. I do not think that they would compete with Nebraska and all 10. I think Nebraska would beat Iowa State. Nebraska's loss to Iowa, in a sense, felt like an anomaly. I know that Iowa owns Nebraska in wrestling, but at the same time, that was the year Nebraska could have beat Iowa, and that's why it was so disappointing. That was the year. This year was the year Nebraska matched up really well against Iowa, and across the lineup, I think Nebraska had the talent. And once Nebraska takes on Iowa's guys again, I think Nebraska's going to do a lot better.
I don't disagree with you. I do think Nebraska, if they had a chance again against Iowa, that they would come out with a win. So you think Penn State and Ohio State, those are the two teams above?
Definitely those two. I think, once again, if Nebraska can make some noise with Ohio State, of course, Brandon Cannon didn't wrestle.
Neither did Patty Gallagher.
Yeah, so Ohio State didn't have two of their top guys. The top guy at 157, and then, of course, their top guy at 165. But still, I think Nebraska, they wrestle Ohio State 10 times. I think Nebraska could win 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And then, you round it out with a team like Oklahoma State, which we saw how that went.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't say third best team.
In the Big Ten.
In the Big Ten. I forget about Oklahoma State, but
kind of quietly just
I don't know. I'm hyping up Nebraska a little bit, but maybe a little bit too much. But I think they're going in the right direction. But anyway, guys, we're going to close out the show. Thank you all for listening once again. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think of the show. Follow ourselves on Twitter at BSchneider33 and at Dugout Cox, guys. For Bobby Schneider and Kyler Cox, signing off.